Hi everybody, I hope you are all well. So, as mentioned in my review for Tombland, my previous video, it's the day after the Cheltenham Literary Festival. I've got the day off work. Fortunately I have to go back tomorrow, but I've got the day free. And so I wanted to shoot some videos based on the suggestions that you guys sent me. Thank you so much for all your suggestions. Please keep them coming. If you want me to do any other particular videos, just let me know and I can sort them out for you. The first one I wanted to do, because it just made me smile as soon as I read the suggestion, is about British comedies. And I have got the whole side of my sofa here, out of shot, are a collection of DVDs that I have of British comedies that I absolutely love. Now, there are other British comedies which I absolutely love, which I don't have DVD copies of, but I just want to quickly plug them right now before I forget. So the two more recent ones I've been introduced to are Catastrophe and Fleabag. Catastrophe, it was a programme, it ran for 4 series, it's on Channel 4. You can download all 4 series from Channel 4 on demand here in the UK, and it basically follows this couple who meet in London. He's American, and Sean and Rob are their names. So Rob is an American, he's come to London for some work, and he meets Sean in a bar, and they two just get along really great. And they end up having this week of constantly having sex and just hanging out, having this kind of like this mini love affair. It's really lovely. And Rob then goes back to America, only to then get a phone call about 6 weeks later or something from Sean to say that she's pregnant. And rather than just abandon the situation and go, oh, I've got no involvement here, blah, 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 Rob goes back to London and says to Sean, look, why don't we make a go of it? And it's all about their relationship, how they kind of fall in love as this baby grows and everything, and how it then goes on. It goes on for the 4 series. And the things that they come up against. What I love so much about that is how much Rob respects Sean and Sean respects Rob. At the same time, they are two completely different people and they need their own spaces and they have to deal with this, that and the other. But they have so got each other's backs. And like I love when they're both in their early 40s, and she is told, basically because she's a geriatric pregnancy, she hates that term, that they have to listen to a doctor explaining all of these different disabilities that their child may have and all of these complications that may come about. And she is really freaked out, and he doesn't judge her when she says, right, I need 1 puff of a cigarette, I'll only have 1 puff and then I'm done, and maybe 1 sip of wine, I'm so freaked out right now. And he just sits there and he respects that she needs to do that. I love aspects of it like that. Rob Delaney, who plays Rob, the characters are basically named after Rob and Sean, who are the actors playing the pair, and they also wrote it and created it. But Rob Delaney, it's very well known that during the course of Catastrophe, his son was diagnosed with a brain tumour and sadly died about 18 months or something after his diagnosis, and series 4 was filmed. They started writing and filmed right after his son's death, and you can see the impact, I think, and it's particularly very poignant, the 4th series, for his character and everything, and well, for both of them, for the things that they go through. But it's an absolutely wonderful gem of a comedy. And Fleabag, which is Phoebe Waller-Bridge's amazing creation about a woman living in London who runs a guinea pig themed cafe, who's going through a lot of stuff, to say the least. And it's only 2 series long, but my God, they are absolutely stunning series. There can't be a 3rd series. She says she's not going to write a 3rd series because I think it would spoil it if they did a 3rd one. But it basically follows her throughout various situations, and it's a very dark comedy, and various things unfold throughout the course of this. But it's one of those shows where it's a comedy, but it's also very dramatic. It's very dark, yet there's these amazing moments where you're absolutely killing yourself laughing, like the whole situation with Claire's haircut, where she says she looks like a pencil. Um, I absolutely love the retreat in the first series that she goes to with her sister, the silent retreat. That's amazing. But yes, both of those series are absolutely wonderful. Other series I don't have on DVD because they're constantly on TV, so I watch them all the time, are things like Absolutely Fabulous, Porridge as well, Only Fools and Horses. They are constantly on UK TV thanks to a channel called Gold, so I can pretty much watch it every single day through my Skybox. But anyway, so it's nearly 6 minutes in. I haven't even started on the DVD pile, so I'm going to try and get through these as fast as I possibly can. And luckily, a bunch of them, it's one series, but it's split over, multiple series. So I'll have like three things to hold for one show. So why don't we start with something a bit dark and sinister? To go with the Fleabag theme, and that is Inside Number 9. I am so excited for Series 5. They have already confirmed that it's all filmed, it's edited, it's ready to go. They're just waiting for the BBC to decide when they're going to show it. Just show it already, for God's sake, BBC. So Inside Number 9 is Reece Shearsmith and Steve Pemberton, who have been writing together, working together for 20 odd years now, and they basically wanted to bring back kind of theatre pieces that used to be on TV, but have it as a half-hour slot, but have them completely disconnected. So no matter which series you pick up, which episode you pick up, they're all completely independent stories. The only running theme is that they relate to or take place in a location relating to the number 9. So we've got a flats number 9, a dressing room number 9. There's an episode that's about a man and his obsession with a size 9 shoe. The 9th film in this guy's collection, that kind of thing. And they are, again, very dark, very twisted, but so funny at the same time. Some of them are a lot more mythical, some of them are a lot more humour, kind of very humour based. There's an absolutely fabulous episode called the 12 Days of Christine, which follows a woman's life living in a flat in London, and it shows you 12 days of her life and what this all means, and it ties up at the end beautifully. I also really love, there's, what's the episode called in here? I don't think there's an episode listed. Oh, no, they don't. I'll find it. I'll put it in the description, about crossword puzzles, and what they did brilliantly to link to and to promote the episode, they actually put the crossword in the Times newspaper like the day before it was due to air, so that if you solve the crossword it would link to you can see it being solved. It was absolutely fantastic. They are geniuses, utter geniuses, and you never know what's going to happen. And there is one of the episodes, which I'll try and hold it up here, that one down there, I think it was called something like To Have and to Hold, about a couple that just living in a very ordinary road in a very ordinary house, but there's an extraordinary secret within. And when I watched that, I went from watching this episode just thinking it was about a marriage to my jaw just dropping open, going, oh my God. And I love that. I love the rug being pulled out from under me. But it's dark, it's funny, it's genius, and I cannot wait for Series 5. So that's Inside Number 9. Okay, let's go something a bit more light-hearted. Let's go for an absolute classic, which I love watching over and over and over again and never get bored of it. Even though I know like scripts off by heart, I still laugh hysterically. And that is The Vicar and Dibley. So I've got the complete collection box set, but then they did a special where they brought Vicar and Dibley back and got the Vicar and a boyfriend who she ended up marrying, and they brought that out as a separate DVD. So that's why I've got the two sets. So The Vicar of Dibley came out in the 90s when the church, there was quite a bit of a to-do, as it were, going on about equality in the church and letting women vicars happen. It's very much the norm now that there are female vicars and everything, but back then it was a big taboo subject, and so Richard Curtis was watching all this stuff going on. He was like, well, why don't I write a comedy about a female vicar? And that's where Geraldine comes in. She is sent to this little village where everyone is kind of a bit odd and funny, and that yet so heartwarming and courageous and wonderful. And there's only one kind of person who's kind of level-headed, as it were, in the whole of the village, and that's David, right down there. But he very much doesn't want a female vicar, and he pretty much spends the first series just trying to boot her out. But in the course of the series, they come to realise that she is what they need. She is a wonderful person and they don't want her to go anywhere, so she ends up staying for quite a while, as we can see all the way through this. And I absolutely adore Alice, the best friend down there. Yeah, and sadly, well, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the main cast now have passed away, so which is very sad, but they live on forever in the Vicar of Dibley. And Alice especially, I love that at the end of each episode, Geraldine tries to teach her a joke, and she takes all the jokes really, really seriously. Like talking about, the one I particularly like is when she's telling a joke about the inflatable boy with a pin who's going around, and you let me down, you let yourself down, you let the whole school down, kind of thing. And Alice is really concerned and saying how he needs psychological therapy and such. It's absolutely brilliant. Rich Curtis is a genius. So, on to another kind of quirky comedy, but I just absolutely adore it. It's the IT Crowd. So they did 4 series, so that's the box set 1 to 3. Then he did series 4, and then he did a one-off final episode, which they brought out separately. So that's why I've got all of these. So basically, the IT Crowd follows Jen, Roy, and Moss, who are down here depicted in these kind of cube-like characters. Let me just see if I've got a picture of them on the back. That's a good picture of them. So there we go. So we've got Moss is down there, that's Roy, and that's Jen, and then that's their boss. So basically Jen turns up in the very first episode, having managed to black her way through an interview for a company, to say that she's really good with computers, and she gets put in the head of IT, but she is really bad with computers. She can boot up a computer, but she doesn't know what a browser is or anything like that. And now she's the head of the IT department, and the IT department is basically Moss and Roy. They are really socially awkward, quite kind of geeky and such, and their office is at the basement, and the running joke is that they always answer the phone, "Hello IT, have you tried turning it off and on again?" To the point where they actually have an answer, kind of like a voice-activated machine, which splurs that out and kind of is able to do their job for them. And it's all about various adventures that they go on together. They go on things like, there's a trip to the theatre, which ends up with Moss being behind the bar and Roy pretending that he's disabled. There is where Moss goes to a cooking class, only to find that he's actually a cannibal who wants to eat him. There's the whole thing of making the perfect bra for Dragon's Den. It's really kooky and quirky and so much fun. And being someone who studied IT at university, there were a lot of characters in there who I very much recognise, and I love their dynamic. And even though it's a very dysfunctional dynamic, they are a family and they all love each other, and I just absolutely love it. Now on to something that is a comedy, but then again you could say it's not a comedy, but it is today. It's Horrible Histories. Now, I've got the series 1 to 5 box set. This is the original cast. They did 5 series, and then CBBC, who show it, then actually changed to a digital service, and all of the cast decided to leave and go on and do other things. This original cast have done... oh gosh, sorry, the TV series has just fallen out of my head. They did a comedy for Sky, which I quite liked, which ran for about 3 years, and now they're doing a series called Ghost together. They've done series 1, which was great, and series 2 has been given the go-ahead. I haven't got the series 1 DVD. I need to get hold of that, actually. But they did... it's something like... It's going to come to, it's just going to pop into my head, I know, at some point when I'm not even thinking about it. But anyway, back to this. So this is the original cast, and it's basically a sketch show based on history with quizzes in between and everything. As I said, it was a children's show, but it's very much got an edge to it. And I've loved history since I was a kid. I love the Horrible Histories books, but I love the way that they talk about history. There's various adult jokes in there as well, and I think it's just a really, really decent sketch show. So even though it's a kids show, as it were, I don't think that it should be frowned on because of that. It's a really, really decent comedy sketch show, poking fun at history and all the various characters in it. And you don't know, if you watch it, you might learn a few things. So as I said, because it went digital and they completely did a new cast and everything, I've not carried on watching Horrible Histories because I love this original cast. So I've stuck to series 1 to 5, but I would recommend it. Definitely. It's a real gem of a show. So then we're going to go over to some 3 very, very different comedies. So the first one is just amazing. It's Gavin and Stacey. So this, if you haven't watched it, please do. No matter where you are in the world, please watch it. The reason why I say no matter where you are in the world is because I know they tried to kind of work it for America, and it didn't work. Just as the IT crowd, if they tried to do it in America, it didn't work, and I think it's probably because of the setting, perhaps. Don't try and remake it, just keep with the original. But it's basically about a guy called Gavin who lives in Essex and a girl called Stacey who lives on Barry Island in Wales, and they have been dating online for quite a while, and in the very first episode they meet, and it's all about their relationship leading to marriage, and then going on with the various things that come up in their life, and all of the different people in their lives, their families, etc. And I adore best friends. You've got Nessa right there, who is Stacey's best friend, and oh, what's a good picture? Actually, no, that's a better picture. That is a better picture. So we've got Nessa there, and then we've got Gavin's best friend, played by the fabulous James Corden. And what you need to know about these two, James Corden and Ruth Jones, who play those characters, wrote and created the series. Smithy, sorry, I forgot to say his name. Sorry, the character is Smithy. They wrote and created this show, and it is so funny and it's so real at the same time. awkward conversations that you may have and everything. But Nessa is just extraordinary. She has all of these wild stories of things that she's done, places she's been, people she's met. You never quite know what's going to come out of her mouth. You never know how she's going to turn up in a scene. And I love her. I think she is incredible. But the dynamic of all of them together, the whole cast. I especially love Larry Lamb and Alistair Stemmer, who play Gavin's mum and dad. The way that they work off each other is wonderful. And yeah, they're all amazing, and I'm so excited this Christmas. They're coming back for a special. It's been about, I think it must be several years at least since we last saw them at the end of third series. And again, it's that thing that they finished the series, they knew they didn't want to write anymore. It would taint it if they carried on, so they just stopped where they were. They've waited ages, and now they've come back for this Christmas, and I'm so excited to see what they're going to bring. So that's Gavin and Stacey. Then the next one, this is one that I like, but no one else I have ever met likes it, and I don't get why. But I think it's an absolute gem. It's Up the Women. It only ran for 2 series before it was axed by the BBC, which is really, really sad. But it's about a group of women living in a place called Banbury, who are around at the time of the suffragette movement. And the very first episode, it's 1910 exactly. The Intricate Craft Circle is their group, and there's a character called Margaret there. And in the very first episode, she explains how she has seen a march by the suffragettes, and she wants to join them. And she thinks that they should all become suffragettes. And you have all of these really strong characters coming through, who are all very, very different, and who, sorry, I'm just looking at the pictures on the back and it's just bringing thoughts of scenes in my head, and they want to, they all bring their own various different things. I adore Gwen right there, who's always the one who always makes the cakes. She's always making tea. She's always cleaning the hall. She always does what she's programmed to do, as it were, and everything. And the way the dynamics against each other, and also there's a few male characters in there as well. Whenever they pop by and everything, it's wonderful, and it's all. Every single episode is just set in this hall during the Craft Circle's 1 hour weekly meeting, talking about suffragettes. And as I said, it ran for 2 series. It was absolutely wonderful. It makes me laugh every time I watch it, but sadly, BBC decided not to carry on. Why? And Jessica Hain, who plays Margaret, is the person who wrote and developed it, and she is absolutely wonderful in this. So if you're able to watch it, please watch Up the Women. I know we're going back to dark comedy, but it's absolutely amazing. It's Black Books. So Black Books it was 3 series, and it basically followed a guy called Bernard, played by Dylan Moran, who runs a place called Black Books, and it's a second-hand bookshop. He is a raging alcoholic. He's a chain smoker. He doesn't really eat. He is constantly up all night. He doesn't give a shit, basically, about life, yet he runs this second-hand bookshop. And one day, a man comes into his shop. He was completely stressed out of his head, and we learn a bit about him, and he basically becomes Bernard, who's played by Miranda, his second-hand man. Manny, that's it. Sorry, I couldn't think what his character's name was. Manny. He's played by Bill Bailey, and he basically becomes Bernard's second-hand man. It's all about these weird kind of adventures that they go through. And they've also got a friend who owns the shop next door, who's just like them, likes to go drinking, likes to chain smoke and everything. And it's just, so quirky and fun and crazy, and you never quite know what's going to happen, which I absolutely love. It looks like, yeah, Dylan Moran was the writer for all 3 series, I think. Yes, yeah. And Graham Linehan wrote series 1 with Dylan, and Graham Linehan is the creator of Father Ted, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And so if you know Father Ted, you can kind of guess of the weird, quirky things that may turn up. But there's an absolutely fantastic episode, which I love, where Manny is sick and tired of the shop and the way he's being treated, and he actually goes to get a job at a book chain, and he's like, oh, everything's so nice and shiny, and there's a cafe and there's muffins and all stuff like this. But he quickly learns the difference between independent shops and chain shops and everything, and his boss is played by the amazing Simon Pegg. In that episode, I adore that episode so much. And the episode where he suddenly realises that he can play the piano. Bill Bailey, who plays him, can play loads of different instruments, and he is amazing on the piano, and the stuff that he plays in that episode is extraordinary. So that is Black Books. So, as I said, it's time to talk about a guy who I love called Father Ted. Sorry, I just need to have a bit of a drink because my throat is really sore at the minute. That's better. So, Father Ted, this is the entire collection, box set, which I got a very, very, very long time ago, is set on a place called Craggy Island, which is on the west coast, I think it is, of Ireland, this little island place. And as I said, it was written by Graham Linehan, and it follows Father Ted, who's down there. Mrs. Doyle is kind of, well, I was going to say kind of servant, but she's not. She is, but she isn't. She basically looks after them. There's Father McDougal, and there's Father Jack. So they all live together. Jack's a raving alcoholic. Dougal is basically he's not very smart. Ted, who's probably the smartest of all of them, but he always ends up doing something really stupid and putting his foot in it. And Mrs. Doyle, the quirky housekeeper who's obsessed with tea, and her catchphrase is, oh, go on, go on, go on, go on, go on, when people don't accept cups of tea from her. And it's all about their various quirky things that they get up to. But the thing about this place, I just wondered if there was any pictures on there. No, it's just the same picture. It's just the same drawing everywhere. But the thing about this show in particular, it came out at a time when comedy was changing, and this kind of quirkiness that we see very vividly in like Black Books and the IT crowd, which is becoming more the norm, was completely utterly new. Like there's this whole bit where one of them is looking out the window using binoculars, and it's just like millions and millions of ants on the screen. It's like, oh, the ants are back then, kind of things like that. There are people falling off roofs. There's this whole thing. I think it's the very first episode actually. This kind of fun fair kind of arrives, but it's like going up on a bench that's just attached by 2 ropes to a crane, that kind of thing. It's really quirky, and there's a character who I can't help but smile whenever I think of him, called Tom, who is got a unibrow. He always wears a jumper that says "I shot JR." Sorry, I shot J. Is it JFK or JR? I'm debating myself now. I think it might be JFK. And he's always telling Father Ted how he's killed a man. There's a couple who are constantly swearing at each other and threatening to kill each other. They abuse each other. But as soon as Father Ted turns up, they're the most loving couple in the world. There's absolutely brilliant episodes. But I love also Bishop Brennan, who Father Ted is absolutely terrified of. and there are other priests that he's constantly having to go up against as well. But I absolutely adore, and I watch it every Christmas, the Christmas episode where various Father Ted and that and loads of other priests find themselves trapped in the women's lingerie department at a shopping centre, and the whole thing of them getting out is like a war film. It's absolutely wonderful. So yes, Father Ted is one of my absolutely favourite British comedies of all time. Now, talking about, and it's a classic as well. So I'm going to talk about some classic comedies now, and then more modern ones, and then I'm going to talk about stand-up comics. So classic comedies, here we go. The first one, because it's just incredible, Fawlty Towers. It only ran for 2 series. How on earth, when you think about this comedy, all of the episodes that they did, the absolute precision in the way it is constructed and everything that goes on, you think that when it's like Porridge, I think that only had 3 series as well, but it feels like there's so much going on, there's so many episodes that there's so much going on in each of those episodes. You think it ran for a heck of a lot longer. So Fawlty Towers follows Basil Fawlty, his wife Sybil, who own and run a really bad hotel in Torquay. They also have Polly, who works there. She's a waitress, but she kind of basically runs the place and keeps it from falling down. And then we have Manuel. Manuel, who I just love. He's so wonderful. He's so wonderful. So Manuel, who is he's a waiter, and he shows people to their rooms, etc. But he is from Spain, and he doesn't understand English all that well, and so it's an added level of complication of having a language barrier. And John Cleese, who plays Basil, basically he came up with the idea of Fawlty Towers because of a very bad experience he had at a hotel in Torquay, I think it was, when he was doing stuff with Monty Python, and he just found it so hysterical that he had to write it. And at the time, his wife, Connie, who played Polly, was interested in writing as well, so they wrote the series together, and during the course of the filming and everything and the writing, they actually got divorced. They were splitting up, so it's very interesting how their lives were shifting whilst they were writing this comedy, but it kind of kept them going in a sense, not in regards to their marriage, but they kept this civil way of being around each other during that time, should I say. And the cast is extraordinary. It never fails to make me laugh. Again, I know like scripts off by heart, and I laugh every single time. It is absolutely wonderful and gem. If they ever thought about anyone remaking this, I would be very annoyed. I know they tried to do it internationally, and the American one in particular is awful, so bad. I mean, in the UK, if they ever thought to remake this, I would lose it. I really would. Another classic, which you just cannot think to remake because it's so amazing, it's Blackadder. So I've got all the individual series here. I've also got the Christmas Carol episode, which is a take on Christmas Carol, and the Blackadder Back and Forth, which they did for the millennium to obviously to accommodate it, to celebrate it. So Blackadder has got a very, very interesting history. So the first series was a kind of a take on history, but a fake history, in regards to what if the princes in the tower were never killed by Richard III, very famously, the whole thing of did Richard murder them and everything. And one of the eldest grows up to be a really strong leader, played by Brian Blessed, and one of his sons, his youngest son, is Edmund, right there. And this basically followed various adventures that they got up to. It's not as good as later ones. It is on a massive scale. There are hundreds of extras pretty much every single week. But you can tell it's very much a stepping stone, but I still do enjoy it. And as the episodes got on, it did get funnier when they made the situations a bit smaller. So when they came back for the second series, they said that they were absolutely astonished that they got picked up for a second series, but they did. They decided, okay, let's have it so that this is the Blackadder line going through history. So they relocated it to Tudor times when the court of Elizabeth II, Elizabeth I, not Elizabeth II, she's our current queen. They made it a lot tighter. They didn't have it on such a grand scale. There are maybe the most people in a scene is probably about 10. And they had it so that Richard Curtis and Ben Elton, who wrote from series 2 onwards, because Richard Curtis and Rowan Atkinson wrote the first series, so Rowan kind of took a step back, as it were, for series 2. Ben Elton and Richard Curtis did this thing where they would write independently, then swap their scripts around, so they never worked together in a room together to write it, but they did write the series together, and suddenly magic happened and it just took off. It then led to series 3, where they did it in the court of George IV. Then they did series 4, where they set it during the First World War, and this was when they said goodbye to it. And the last episode of series 4 has the most extraordinary scene. That final scene always makes me cry my eyes out. It is so beautiful, so respectful to all the soldiers who died in the war and everything, for us to be free. During the course of, I think it was between series 2 and 3, actually it must have been between 3 and 4, because of the various characters that we meet. They did A Christmas Carol, which is a really great take on the Christmas Carol story, because rather than it being a nasty guy who turns nice, it's a nice guy who turns nasty after seeing all of his previous relatives being nasty, and the things that they gain from being nasty, which is great. And as I said, in the millennium, Sky One commissioned a special Blackadder involving a time machine and a lot more periods of history. And of course, because it was a bit bigger again, they were able to go out on various locations and do various things with all the cast members. So you have like Waterloo, you have Roman times, you have Jurassic period, there's a whole lot. There's also meeting Robin Hood. I love Colin Firth's Shakespeare, and when Blackadder punches him in the face because of the 4 hours production of Hamlet, Kenneth Branagh makes, which is I love that moment. As a Shakespeare fan, I loved it. So yes, Blackadder, it's timeless. It is amazing. It's wonderful. Please watch it. And my last classic is again Rowan Atkinson, but you just cannot beat it because it's wonderful. It's Mr. Bean. I love Mr. Bean. I think Mr. Bean is one of those characters, one of those comedy shows that will live forever. Just as, like Fawlty Towers and Blackadder and all that lot will. Mr. Bean has got a completely different level for the fact that there is no dialogue. It's complete slapstick. It's complete body movement, facial expressions, and everything, and timing. The timing on Mr. Bean is perfect. The Christmas specials for Mr. Bean are wonderful. I adore them, especially. I think that Rowan Atkinson is a gem. He's an absolute gem of British comedy. And when you see him, there's loads of stuff on YouTube earlier on in his career where he plays with silent characters, and there's one in particular which I love, which is the invisible drum set, where he's a cleaner and he comes across an invisible drum set and he does this kind of crazy solo and he's trying to figure out where things are, and there's a point where he drops the sticks and he's got to roll around, he's got to find them, and he bashes his head on cymbals and such. It's wonderful. I'm sure it's on YouTube. If I find it, I'll put it in the description. But yeah, you can see him sort of developing this Bean character, and then when Mr. Bean arrived on our screen, we didn't forget him, and it's more universal just using body than having lots of dialogue and everything, because obviously you have, with different countries, you have different slang for different things and such, but if you take that out of the equation, you can show this in every country around the world and people will get it. So yes, I think that's why Mr. Bean is an absolute gem of a comedy piece and really should be looked at. I wasn't that fond of the films that they made of him, but I can understand why they've done that. But they've also gone to make Mr. Bean the animated series for children, which totally makes sense. And like my nephew and niece absolutely love Mr. Bean. Since they were little, they watched Mr. Bean because they could understand it. And so it makes total sense that they made a TV series out of Mr. Bean for children. Okay, so last bit of comedies, TV comedies, and then we're going to move on to my favourite stand-up comics, British stand-up comics. So a more recent comedy, which I think is a little gem. A lot of people do love it, but there are a lot of people who I know who don't love it, and I don't get why, because I love it. It's CarShare by Peter Kay. So this is based... well, we don't know exactly where it's based, come to think about it. But basically, we know that there is a supermarket in this area. I think it might be Bolton. I think it might be Bolton that has come to mind. This supermarket where Peter Kay works as a manager is creating a car share system in order for that, obviously for more environmentally friendly kind of stuff, is better. And his very first scene is him driving to this place. He has absolutely no idea where he's going. His sat nav is telling him loads of crazy stuff, and he pulls up and picks up one of his colleagues, a woman called Kaylee, who he knows but he doesn't really know her, and drive her to work. And the entire episodes are set in the car on the commute to and from work. Sometimes it's just the commute to work, or it's just the commute home, or it's covering both ways. But it basically is about their developing relationship. And it's beautiful. It's so funny. It's so beautiful. It ran for 2 series, and then there was a final episode where they finished it all up. This box set only covers series 1 and 2. They haven't released the final episode, which I really want them to do, because I'd like to see it again. Especially because of the cliffhanger at the end of series 2. The final episode just brought everything together so beautifully. But it's just literally these 2 people in a car. On occasion, and when I say on occasion, I can only think of 2 instances where there's somebody else in the car with them for one reason or another. But other than that, it's just these 2 people, and Kaylee is wonderful. She likes a good drink, she likes hanging out with people, she likes having fun, whereas John, who's played by Peter, he enjoys kind of those things as well, but she is very bold, she is very extrovert, whereas he's more introvert. And it's all about things that she brings out him, and also things he brings out of her. And the soundtrack is amazing because they're constantly listening to the radio and the songs kind of relate to them. And she's going on quite a bit about a Now collection CD and a particular track about that CD. At the end of series 1, that was wonderful with that song in particular. I'm not going to say what it is, I'm not going to say what happens if you haven't seen it and you want to, but it is really, really gorgeous. I don't know if it's on Netflix or anything. I might look that up actually, or an iPlayer. It might be an iPlayer because they've launched now. iPlayer's got a lot more into it, so I might check out, see if I can grab that final episode of CarShare by that. But yeah, CarShare, little gem. Another one, I've only got the series 1 DVD of, but there's actually been 3 series of it now, and that is Upstart Crow. So Upstart Crow is a comedy about William Shakespeare. Something that you really wouldn't think would work, but it really does. And it stars David Mitchell as Will Shakespeare. He is absolutely perfect in it. And it's a Ben Elton comedy who wrote, Blackadder and everything with Richard Curtis. And that kind of time period just works, I think, with him and his writing. And he's absolutely brilliant in it. Will has kind of like 2 lives. He has his life at home in Stratford and also his life in London, where he mainly is, and he commutes kind of back and forth throughout. And he always complains when he gets home to Stratford of his commute, relating to obviously kind of how we relate to modern day trains and such. And it's really, really funny every time that he comes home. But what I love is that it kind of shows the way in which Will gets his inspiration. But I love his relationship, especially with his wife, who kind of sets him on certain tracks to be able for him to be able to see things that inspire him for his plays. And he has all of these amazing characters that pop up along the way. I love Marlowe especially. I think Kit Marlowe is wonderful. This kind of bohemian-esque cool guy amongst playwrights, while Will is sat there scribbling away. He's like, oh hell, I've got money, I'm a spy, kind of, oh, but don't tell anyone. He's really funny. And you also have a female character who desperately wants to act on stage, but she's not allowed to act on stage because she's a woman, and she's very much fighting for women's rights and everything at a time where a woman kind of knew her place, as it were. And I love, because Shakespeare had 3 children, his eldest was a girl, because obviously at the time this is called Susan in real life, and obviously here in the drama, and she's very much a stroppy teenager, and she's like, oh, like this. And he gets I think it's in the first episode, he gets her to read out a load of stuff from Romeo and Juliet as Juliet, and she's going, oh dad, I don't understand what the heck this means and all this stuff. It's really kooky and quirky, and I love his parents as well. They are all great. As I said, it's run for 3 series. I know series 1 is definitely on Netflix here in the UK, but I'm not sure about the other ones. I might check that out. But there's also, obviously, iPlayer is a good place to look as well because it's BBC. But it's quite quirky, it's fun. You don't have to be a fan of Shakespeare to watch and appreciate but I think it kind of helps if you do know, because there's so many little references everywhere to various Shakespeare plays and such. So if you know Shakespeare well, I think you pick up on more things. But still, it's a really, really good little gem of comedy. Then my one before last, it's wonderful. It ran for 4 years, and I wish it had run for longer, and it's so fabulous. It's Coupling. Now, I got introduced to coupling when I was at university, and I didn't know then how much I would come to love this series. So it is a series, as I said, around 4 series here in the UK, but they tried to launch it in America and it only lasted, I think, 3 episodes or something like that. It really bombed like crazy, and it is actually written by Stephen Moffat. And it's the thing is that series 4 has got quite an interesting ending, where it could carry on to 5th series, but BBC went, no, we're going to pull the plug on this, and he was like, oh, okay, and they went, but we've actually got we're making Doctor Who, we're relaunching Doctor Who. Would you like to write an episode of that? And Stephen was like, oh, okay, yeah. And that led on to him then being the controller head of, with Doctor Who after Russell T Davies left. Then he went on to do Sherlock, and now he's doing Dracula. So it's kind of because of this, we have had Doctor Who and Sherlock, and now he's going on to Dracula. So, so I can't fault it for that. So Coupling basically follows a group of adults in their 30s, which and all kind of various things that they go through. So you've got Steve and Susan, who are there, and they basically meet. They quite like each other. They ask each other out. Is the first episode. We also have his best friend, her best friend, his ex, and her ex, and they all kind of meet in the last episode and become this kind of friend unit, that it's so at times, I'm trying to think what the words I'm trying to say, it's absolutely perfect, it's wonderful to watch, but at times it is kind of awkward where it's the exes and what they're telling, various techniques and such that they like, but it's also very open about relationships, about sex, about quirky things, like when Susan buys a load of cushions for the sofa, this massive drama that it causes, and taking the lock off the bathroom door, stuff like this about living together and everything. And I love the various characters. I love Patrick, who secretly videoed every person that he's had, every woman that he's had sex with, and he keeps them in his cupboard. I know that sounds really bad, and I shouldn't be laughing about it, but when you see it through the comedy, when you understand his character, it's like, well, of course he's done that. Things like this. It's kooky and it's quirky. I love how different the characters are, and there's always that thing that they could be quite on edge because of things that they're talking about and the way the characters rub off one another, but they all are this family unit at the end of the day, and they're just, they are wonderful. So I didn't say who the various characters were, did I? No, so sorry, that's Patrick, which is Steve's best friend. Oh, sorry, no, that's Susan's ex, who then becomes Steve's best friend. That's Jeff, who is Steve's best friend. That's Sally, who is Susan's best friend. She's obsessed. She is absolutely obsessed with not aging. Jeff is obsessed with women. And then there's Sally, who is Steve's ex, and then becomes one of Susan's best friend, she is the smartest woman in the world, but she is very open about her sexuality. She likes talking about sex. She's quite a startling personality, but I love her for it, and she goes through some crazy adventures. And finally, it's just amazing, it's Miranda. Miranda Hart is one of my absolute favourite female comedians, and she wrote this series called Miranda, about a woman who owns a joke shop, in London with her best friend Stevie, who's a woman, even though as a male name, and the various adventures that she gets up to. And it's based off a radio series that she did, which ran for one episode on the radio and tried to transfer it to TV, and it just works amazingly. Tom Ellis is in this playing Gary, the guy who she's interested in, and Patricia Hodge is amazing playing her mother. He's constantly trying to set her up. He's constantly trying to find her somebody, and the way the dynamic of the group works together. But what I love is that Miranda, she breaks the fourth wall. She constantly talks to the camera. We are her friends. And I especially loved in the very final episode how she does this final address to us, and you can see Miranda Hart is getting choked up and genuinely as herself, thanking us for following her, as she blows a kiss and says love you, which is something, instead of saying love you, she says love you all the time, Miranda, to us. And it's an absolute gem of a series. So it ran for 3 series, and then there was the absolute final episode, so that's why I've got the 4 sets here. But every single episode is great, and Miranda, she's very she lies to deal with social situations. She constantly falls over. She constantly doubts herself. She does all this various quirky stuff. And the fact that she owns a joke shop, it just works for her. So then finally, I just want to very quickly talk about my favourite stand-up comics. And my first one, who I've really loved watching for many, many years, and I've watched his various TV shows as well as his stand-up, and that's Russell Howard. Russell Howard is very well known for various TV show kind of panel shows that he's done, sort of like Mock the Week. I think he's also done things like Big Fat Quiz of the Year. That's it. Sorry, I couldn't think the name of the show. But he's also done his own TV series, Russell Howard's Good News, and currently is a Sky One. He does the Russell Howard Hour, and he's gone on to do a series of him, a couple of series now, sorry, of him travelling around the world with his mum, who he talks about in his stand-up comedy all the time, and she sounds like this wonderful woman, and she is just how he describes her on his stand-up shows. But what I love about Russell Howard is he very much talks about life, talks about politics. He's very interested in that, but he also does this thing that he kind of goes off on a tangent in his comedy shows, and you never quite know what's going to happen, and I love him for that. He's so fun. He's so much fun. And the stuff, the various stories that he tells on his stand-up shows are brilliant. He's also done some stuff, I think, on the like American stand-up comedy shows that I've seen as well. Where he's done like late late shows and everything to show his stand-up, and Americans seem to like him as well. So I'm glad about that. Another one to look out for. Jack Whitehall. Jack Whitehall is quite a posh guy. He grew up, in quite a privileged area, and he basically, it's just him talking about his family, his life, and everything. These 2 shows and his love for the Lion King. He's gone on to do quite a lot of other, he's on like loads of panel shows as well. He's gone on to do other programs, especially with his dad, who has kind of become part of this. They've become this kind of comedy duo, which is great. And yeah, so I really like Jack Whitehall, and sometimes he does go off on a bit of a tangent as well, or he forgets what he's going to say. But his timing of his comedy is really great. And everything, and I love him, especially on Graham Norton's show. He and Graham, the way that they just go off on each other, it's really, really great chemistry that they have. How they play off each other is brilliant. So I really like Jack Whitehall. And another guy who I just adore watching and listening to is Joe Lycett. Joe Lycett, he constantly is on social media. He likes to take down people who like scam artists and stuff like this. And he constantly is on Twitter, and he hates celebrities that do really stupid things. Like he basically, he really hates Cheryl Cole, who, well, she was Cole and now she's Fernandez, Cheryl Fernandez something or other, I can't remember. That he calls, he likes to do things like he hates Cheryl because of her use of the bullshit quotes, as what he says. So he has this thing where he posts quotes on Twitter in nice font and everything, like people do on Twitter, but the words have to be something he hasn't thought of for longer than 10 seconds, and he just posts it, and it's a way of kind of making fun of people. But he's also done, as I said, some really great stuff like the taking down scam artists and such for his TV show that he's done for Channel 4. He's been on loads and loads of panel shows. He likes to turn up quite a bit on 8 out of 10 Cats does Countdown. But his live shows are really, really great. I especially love That's the Way, Aha, Aha, Joe Lycett. I think that one is really, really good. And finally, because I couldn't do this without mentioning the amazing, wonderful Victoria Wood. One of her TV series is actually here, which I did mention before because I knew I was going to do Victoria Wood part, is Dinner Ladies, where she set it in a canteen of a factory. But basically, Victoria Wood is a stand-up comic. He wrote, various sitcoms, dramas. She wrote a stage show of Acorns Antiques, which is part of her skits and such. And I forgot to grab it. That Day We Sang, which was a musical that she did for the BBC for Christmas a few years ago. But she basically was a stand-up comic who wrote these amazing songs. He had this astonishing career, but she's very much stayed to her roots. And if you watch any of her stuff, you can see that she never regarded herself as a celebrity. She was just somebody who liked to write music and songs and find funny things in reality. I suppose Peter Kay is kind of like that as well. I don't have Peter Kay's live shows, and I can't hold them up to show you. But I would, include him and Victoria in the same kind of league. But I would strongly recommend you go pick up any of these Victoria Wood DVDs. Watch them. I especially love Victoria live at the Albert Hall. That is absolutely brilliant. And yeah, please watch her because she was an absolute gem. Sadly, she passed away from cancer a few years ago, and I still miss her. I still constantly watch it, even though I know scripts off by heart, sketches, live shows off by heart because I've watched them so many times. I still find myself laughing my head off. She is absolutely wonderful. So there we go. So that's my video about British comedies, which I love, which I recommend, and stand-up comics that I recommend as well. Thank you for sitting all this time. I'm going to have some more of my cup of coffee because my throat is absolutely killing me, and I'll be back shortly with another video. If you want to leave me a comment about any of the comedies that I recommended or ask any questions, please do, or you can give me thumbs up, thumbs down as usual. And I'll be back with another video shortly. Bye!